Welcome back to Rollin with Olan. I'm Jeff Olan, your host. Thanks for joining us. So, in Los Angeles, any big town where there's a lot of media people that live, you don't know who your neighbors are sometimes. And in this case, in this episode, for years, I would see Ron in the neighborhood. One day we started waving to each other. Hey, how you doing? Another day we started with small chat. And then before you know it, we found out who each other were and what we did and what have you. So, welcome to my podcast, Ron Myrick. Ron is an animation director, producer, writer, posing artist, author, sheet timer, and a great all around guy. Ron, I'm a little fluttered by talking to my neighbor, but thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure, Jeff. My pleasure, and hello, audience.
So, Ron, I believe you're an LA native. Tell us about your upbringing, if you could.
Actually, Jeff, I was born in the South. My family came here from Atlanta, Georgia, approximately 1957, 58. And I essentially grew up here in LA, but did migrate around the country. Uh, my father, who initially moved here, separated from my mother and moved to Brooklyn, New York. And so I would spend time with him every other summer in New York, which was quite a contrast to living in Los Angeles. But overall, my primary growing up was here in LA. Although, again, I did move back to the South to Atlanta for a year. So I have a very eclectic background in living uh, overall.
So you went to school here. Did you end up going to college in the LA area, or where did you go to college?
I started at Los Angeles City College in 1969 and in 1970 transferred to the College of Arts and Crafts in Oakland, the Bay Area, where I graduated 3 years later with a BFA in drawing.
In drawing. Yeah,
Mhm.
and you had that from a really early age, right? You were interested. I mean, I read someplace that you were interested in drawing
Yeah,
even as a young child.
of course, yeah. Like all children who start out drawing, I think it's a natural desire kids have, but the ones who really excel and succeed in it, it becomes more of like a passion or an obsession, and that's what it was for me. I wanted to draw on any and everything. If it was a blank piece of paper or a wall, I would draw on it. And what I drew primarily were comic books, comic strip characters.
Wow.
Just had a love and passion for drawing, and that translated into life drawing.
Translated into life drawing and to what you're doing now, which is incredible. I mean, like I said, I've known you being a neighbor. We talk here and there, but until I really dug into like your history and your experience, I mean, quite honestly, I mean, I'm just so honored to have you on the show. It is just amazing. It's remarkable. Your experience is remarkable. So, congratulations to you on all of that.
Oh, thank you, Jeff.
Um, I believe in, I'm going to be jumping around a little bit here, but, your interest was drawing. You had a passion for it. You still have a passion for it. The animation industry is huge. I mean, it's a multi billion dollar industry, incredibly big. I think, I mean, 400 billion. I think I read at one point in time. I mean, that's not even bigger, maybe nowadays. Um, Now, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, or I should ask you what your first job was, but I believe your first job in animation as an animator was for Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids in the 70s. Is this true or
Yeah,
do,
that's correct. I was not an animator. That was the beginning of my career because you see, I didn't study animation in college. I had no idea how it was done. I understood it involved drawing the character repetitiously to create motion, but I didn't know how to do that. I was put in a training program by the studio Filmation. It no longer exists, but they had a roster of, I believe they had about at least 6 series at the year I graduated and they started this program. Um, the series were the Archies, which was a very um, a popular show. The music hit Sugar Sugar came
Mhm.
out of that cartoon, and it was based on the Archie comic book, which I used to read as a young man. Um, there was a Lassie, My Favorite Martian,
Mm.
uh, Star Trek, which was voiced. The voices were the original actors in the Star Trek series: William Shatner, Leonard
Mm.
Nimoy, the rest of the group. Um, and it's yes, Fat Albert and Mission Magic School Bus. So these were all shows being done at simultaneously, and the position I started in was as an in-betweener, which is means you literally drew one line in the middle of two,
Huh.
which started to dictate the amount of the motion of the drawings or the characters would do. And the more in betweens and drawings you have, the smoother the motion is. But at that time, television animation was very limited, which was a complaint by many audiences that they wanted the Disney quality of animation, where that was done on 24 frames a second, while we shot things on 12 frames a second, two
Hmm.
drawings for each second. Uh,
Ron, if I could, just reference this a little bit, can you let us know approximately how old you were at this time?
I was 21.
21. I mean, to do that at 21 years old, and I mean, you, I mean, an in between I mean, I would never have known. So that's actually a job title.
It was. It no longer is.
Hmm.
As you can well imagine, the computer has transformed animation. The drawing done today is in the computer. People can still draw on paper, which is what the medium was when I started, but it's primarily done in the computer in programs like Storyboard Pro, and there's a number of others that allow you to draw as if it's on paper, but it's in the computer, it's digital. And the computer then simulates things as far as the motion goes. It provides the in betweens, um, and it's a much faster process than when I started.
Well, certainly a lot has changed since those days. And since that first job, you've worked for all the big animators. You literally have worked for Hanna-Barbera, Cartoon Network, Warner Brothers Animation, Sony Animation, Disney Animation, Saban Entertainment, Mattel, and others. I mean, it can't even go on. I mean, that's an incredible and impressive record just from there. Were you doing different jobs with each of them as you were working your way, up the ladder per se?
Sometimes I did multiple. Really, Jeff, I did what it took to
Yeah.
survive. Um,
Paid your dues, right?
I paid my dues. That was all a part of paying my dues. Initially, from the 70s to the mid to late 80s, it was primarily animation. Um, and then the industry of animation was at the forefront of outsourcing, work being sent out of the country. And so to stay in the business, I moved up the ladder to become a director. Initially, a sheet timing director. And sheet timing is much like writing sheet music
Mm.
for composers or for musicians. A musician looks at the sheet music that a composer has created and knows which notes to play. Well, the animators overseas in various countries, the Orient, Philippines, Korea, Japan, and so on, would look at the sheet directing and know where to put the drawings for the action in a particular scene. And it was all a formula, and also how the characters would speak, how to move their mouths. It was all written on a sheet. Um, from there, I've uh, progressed into becoming a full-fledged director, handling an entire series.
Hmm.
The first series I directed was The Addams Family for Hanna-Barbera. It was a reboot of the classic cartoon, classic show, The Addams Family. And interestingly, John Aston was the voice of Gomez. We had a fantastic cast. Carol Channing played Granny. Rip Taylor played Uncle Fester,
Wow.
and we had some incredible voice actors. Jim Cummings was the voice of Lurch. Um, Nancy Lenari played Morticia. Debbie Derryberry was Wednesday, and Jeannie Elias was Pugsley. And it was a great experience. I mean, I can't express how much fun it was to. It was
Yeah.
like
Well,
going to work to play.
yeah, and you're definitely, so you're involved in, obviously as a director, you're involved also in the casting of voice actors, whether they're famous or otherwise, for any of these animated characters.
Oh yes, yeah. The process starts with the script. I work with the writers, and they're working. It's a very collaborative art form. So the network would at that time give the assignment of a series, lay out who the writers are, and I would work with the writers to get their vision of what is going on in the series. I could give notes, but most of the notes are coming from the network. And then we would collaborate on who the best cast members would be, um, along with the composers for music. Uh, and then the biggest job I had was directing the artists, the character designers, the layout artists, the storyboard artists, the color stylists. Um, and Hanna-Barbera had a fantastic system at that time, with each department of these categories being run by a very efficient and creative, talented department head. And the department head would work with the various directors on their shows. So I had a team, um, and off we go.
Yeah, is it usually the same team, or like, or do you bring in different people for different positions on obviously different jobs, or do you usually work with the same team?
It varies. Within the studio system, it was the same team, but artists could go from one project to another.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when the business became more independent, a director was expected to bring his own team to a project. That was the case when I moved from Hanna-Barbera to the studio Deke. Uh, I directed Sonic the Hedgehog there,
Mm-hmm.
and it was starting from the ground up to bring in my own artist and across the board, which was another experience, but a good one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you just mentioned a couple of the projects that you've been involved with. So many of them. You have done over, yes, I counted. You have done over 1,000 television episodes, including shows such as The Jetsons, The Smurfs, Dennis the Menace, Flash Gordon, SpongeBob SquarePants, Fat Albert, and so many others that we talked about, and so many of these that I grew up on, which is kind of weird, but just an incredible. And let me go on. As an animator for over 133 TV projects and movies, do you ever look in the mirror and ask yourself how you got to this level of success? Because you have done an awful lot, my friend.
Well, yes, there are times. Honestly, Jeff, I Thank you for everything you've just shared. But I don't look back because I wonder, how did I do all of that? How did I accomplish it all? And I've even asked myself, who is this guy? I don't really know. But yeah, I've had a long, varied career, for lack of a better word, a blessed career to do all of the projects that I have and to still be active and working in the business. It continues. You just keep moving forward. And I figure one day I'll really look back and take a full assessment. But for right now, I'm still in it.
You're still working. It's still working. And what I mean, you're an animator, but there's so many other things that you've done along the line. And I mean, which I'm going to get into a little bit more. Hopefully, you'll get into it as far as telling it. Actually, what what else did you need to learn to become an animator?
Well, that's good question. First and foremost, with just animation, learning how things move, because that's what an animator does. Learning how to look at a character, look at a design or a scene, and bring it to life. And that was the fun of it, because whether it was special effects, let's say everything in early cartoons from the early 1900s into the 70s and 80s, everything was hand drawn. So if it was rain, you animated and drew rain.
Hmm.
If it was water splashing, you, those were drawings of splashing water, along with the characters running through the water, or it was dust or smoke. And so everything you learn to study the motion and movement of everything. But as my career started advancing, moving up the ladder, I started to focus on character development and storytelling,
Hmm.
like getting into the nuances of how does a character move. Um, if it's the, the way it's designed, if it's a big character or a skinny character or a little kid or an adult. And then looking at a script now, getting a really big picture of what does it take to bring this script and this story to life. So that was my education and evolution over the years.
Yeah. So, and that is like you said, you started out early drawing and all the art and everything that you've done. Let me ask you, because I did not know any of this, and I'm sure the audience most don't have a clue. What's the difference between an animation timer, a sheet timer, a timing director, an animation timing director? There might even be more. And if you could tell us what the difference is, that would really help.
Well, basically, they're all the same, Jeff.
That's it. We got to go.
The process of timing initially was in two stages. There was timing the storyboard, and the timing director or sheet timer would take the timed out storyboard and again put the notations on the exposure sheet of what it needed to be, where the characters, where they were put. Um, Nowadays, it's done in what's called an animatic, and the animatic is the storyboard literally in motion. It's not animation, but it's very close to it. And the timing director or a sheet timer takes that and translates it to the exposure sheets. And in some cases, the animatic provides all the timing that the animators need to do the animation. But for many years, from the late 80s, um, as I said, when production started being outsourced, up until the mid to recent 2020s, there's been less and less timing done for productions,
Hmm.
um, which again, what keeps me current is I'm a director above that, being able to direct and create projects, as I am currently involved in the creation of several series.
Well, you've worked on so many shoots over the years for so many different companies. Can you take us back, or do you remember the first job you ever directed on, and when you got that call?
Well, that was the Adams Family.
That was the Adams Family. Oh, that's right. You did say that. Okay. So that was the Adams Family. So when you got that call to do that, I mean, that was from, just working so hard in the industry prior to that, that somebody just said, hey, let's go with Ron. Is that how it happened?
Yeah, pretty much. I didn't know the job opening. In fact, it was at Hanna-Barbera, where they had a large staff, and they were looking at internal directors they had and decided to reach outside. And at that time, I had worked at Hanna-Barbera. That was in the early 90s, about 1992. I initially worked at Hanna-Barbera in 1980. Uh, I was hired by Bill Hanna to
Wow.
um, freelance. I was a freelancer. I had my own freelance company, freelancing animation for Hanna-Barbera, and I worked alongside him and Jane Barbera, the daughter of Joe Barbera,
Wow.
and she and Bill ran production. So that established our friendship relationship, and it continued over the years. I left Hanna-Barbera in approximately 1983 and moved around to different studios. So my knowledge and reputation continued growing, and they reached out to me to direct this series.
Well, I mean, to be hired by William Barbera, that's pretty incredible, and to work for that company and so many others that you have worked with. I mean, you've done so much. You've also, and I think the audience needs to know that you've been nominated for 3 daytime Emmys for Ozzy and Drix and for Baby Looney Tunes. Can't say I saw either, but congratulations on that. And also, you just won another an award, did you not? Can you tell us about that?
Yes, the LA Film Festival, I won an award for Best Episode of a Series. I'm currently developing, well, I have developed a series that we will be pitching next year called The Expats. And it has aired in several film festivals around the world, actually. Initially, it started at the Annecy Film Festival, which is in France. Annecy is a small town, I believe, in northern France near Switzerland. And every year they have a fantastic animation festival that's attended by all the big studios around the world here from the US. And the producer that I'm working with on this series was able to get us in, which was a really big honor. And that started it off. We didn't win anything there, but once it sort of started the dominoes rolling, and other film festivals invited us to join them, and we've won approximately 9 awards now. With last week, 2 weeks ago,
Congratulations.
being the latest. Thank you. And we've written scripts, and we're ready. We're ready to go into production.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I mean, you're still doing this. It is so amazing. You had touched earlier a little bit um, on what the process was from idea to concept. Basically, how long does it actually take to do like an episode of any of these shows? And if you could just walk us through a little bit more of that process.
Well, overall, it's approximately 6 months, and when you're doing a series, you're staggering the process so that as one part of one episode is being done, you start the next episode, and so on, so that an entire series can take 8, 9, or 12 months,
Hmm.
depending on the complexity of it. Now we have different mediums like computer generated
Mm-hmm.
animation. We call that CGI. There's Harmony, another type of program that you can work in with a computer. But the fundamental basis of it all, starting from the ground floor, is with designs that can be done on pencil and paper or in the computer. But it starts with a drawing, and and so there's typically a character designer, background designer, and you're creating work. And I, the director, am working with those individuals, can be at least two or more, um, to create the world as we're envisioning it, and whether I'm working with a personality or from a source. For example, 2 years ago, I directed two movies for Mattel, Barbie movies.
Mm-hmm.
This was prior to the mega hit Barbie movie, Warner Brothers movie coming out, but the movies can be seen on Netflix. And as I said, we started with the basic drawings and then just building out and creating the world. And the interesting thing about working with CGI computer animation is it's almost like building a real house or a real world, but it's all digital. Nothing's real,
Hmm.
but it is real,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. And it's quite exciting, but from the designs, then everything is being dictated by the script. Then the designs are handed off to the storyboard artist, where the story is crafted and starting to be visualized. And
Mm-hmm.
once the storyboard is done, then it's edited to you figure out the pacing of it. You know, how long is this story going to be? We had a limit of it being 60 minutes, 1 hour. Um, our story actually ran over. The script was long. And I said to the writer, we need to cut something. We got to start editing. You're familiar with that, right?
Yes.
This particular writer did not want to do any edits until the entire script was storyboarded, which meant a lot of work is going to go down the drain. It's going
Yeah.
to be wasted. So we ended up needing to cut 20 minutes out of the story, which is kind of long. And we compromised on it being an hour and 6 minutes. But with each stage, so once the storyboarding is done, um, then the animation process begins and the special effects process, and it's all put together in editing, compositing, lighting, and the movie magic happens. But it takes at least that particular movie took about a year,
Wow.
and the end results were quite nice. It's called Mermaid Power, where Barbie and her sisters go underwater and are transformed into mermaids.
I love it. I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to bring it up down the line here. But it's incredible because people do not know. Certainly, people that are not in our industry, they don't know how long it takes to do anything, and especially with animation, which is so different, than other television shows and movies and what have you. We are so blessed to be in this industry, and it's just such a passion that we have for it, but it's also just the time that goes into it. And like you said, there's a lot of time that goes into it, and unfortunately there's a lot of things that are unfortunately thrown out with that time that we're putting in because either something or another, or somebody's not happy, or this or that. It's incredible. But but you still love what you do every day, don't you?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I'm again currently developing three series, and one is with it's being produced in India. It's such an international field now. The other is being another being produced in Vietnam,
Hmm.
and the third, the expats, was produced in Nigeria. So again, collaboration and communication are essential. Um, I don't necessarily speak other languages, but I jokingly say I speak artist. I can speak to
Yeah,
artists around the world in different languages. We communicate much like a composer communicates with a musician, although they may speak different languages. Music is a universal language, and it's very similar with animation. I found it to be a
yeah.
universal language.
Do you travel a lot for the job?
I used to. Now the internet has cut
Yeah.
that down, but there was a time I had one show I produced and directed called Diabolique. It never aired here in America, but it was quite popular around the world, and it was based on a European character that was a thief. He was a master thief, and it was an international project in that the scripts were written here in America, the storyboards done in France, the voice recordings done in Canada, the animation done in Japan and Korea. And as
Wow.
the key director, I traveled to all those countries, which was a lot of fun.
It's incredible. Yeah, it's the collaboration on that. It's really something. Um, what's your biggest challenges as an animator nowadays?
Um, well, I would say the financing.
The financing, getting getting something greenlit, right?
That's the bottom line. Yeah.
Otherwise, you could do it. Otherwise, everything could be taken care of, right? No matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you talk about CGI. You talk about all the the ways that you could do animation now and this and that. What's your thoughts on AI within the animation community or industry?
It's a good question, Jeff, and I'm evaluating it on a daily basis. It's something that we're all learning. Um, at best, it's another tool that we can use to creatively. Um, at worst, some executive sees a way to start putting people out of work, replacing artists and writers and the like.
Yeah.
Uh, and so it's a horse that's gotten out of the barn and there's no putting it back in. We're just going to have to learn how to work with it and deal with it, and that's what I'm doing along with, I'd say, everybody else in the industry.
Yeah, I think your analogy on the horse is so correct. I don't think any of us really know. It's a hard pill to swallow if it goes south. But we're hopeful. I like the fact that you're saying it might just be another tool, and hopefully it doesn't get to a point where it's taking away jobs or anything like that from all of us who have been so creative and so passionate about what we do, and maybe not even in just our industry, but other industries out there. You know, is there anything in the animation space that you have not done yet that you'd like to do?
Well, I'll tell you what I haven't done, and it fascinates me, is stop motion animation.
Hmm.
Um, I believe it was last year, Guillermo, Guillermo del Toro produced the movie Pinocchio that was on Netflix, and it was fascinating. There's a series of movies, I believe one just recently came out called Wallace and Gromit, um, that are two characters produced in stop motion. And even though the principal process is the same, an object being moved and shot frame by frame, I'm fascinated with how they do it because everything is in the camera at the same time.
Mm.
While in animation, we do things in layers. So you can have your effects going on one layer of rain and smoke and dust and your characters and so on, and then you composite it all. But for the most part, in stop motion, it's all right there, but it's
Yeah.
moving at different timings. And in fact, there was a film after a little documentary after showing how they produced Pinocchio, and I understood it, but it was just amazing.
Blown away.
Oh, one day, maybe I'll get to work on a stop motion project.
I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will. You'll be doing this for a long time to come. And I think it's just great to hear that. Did you have any mentors as you were climbing up the ladder?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Um, well, that's literally how I learned because we were all in the studio at that time. I'll start in the '70s. You would bring your um, work to an animator, and he would look it over, give you critiques, whether it was good or bad or what you needed to fix, and you slowly started to learn. So my mentors were the classic animators that worked on Bugs Bunny, Popeye.
Wow.
They worked on the classic cartoons that I grew up watching,
Yeah.
and and to see them doing these new cartoons of Fat Albert and the Jetsons and so on, that was just food for me. It was literally my education all over. And there were, and each director or animator had his own personality. Some of them were complete jerks, and others were really cool guys who would take the time to show you how they did something or would inspire you. And that's what I feel is missing to a large part today. There's a lot of how to do things on YouTube, but it's missing that personal contact of, you know,
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. Really, really getting that firsthand study or listening to people that are actually doing it. There's nothing better than being a sponge in that space. Because yeah, nowadays we can learn so much on the computer, but it just doesn't give you the same education as in person. And you have done so much as we've covered. You've done so much over the years, and I see on one of your shelves back there. I know you have a lot of various characters and whatever. I read that when you were working at Saban, you had floor to floor to ceiling posters, all kinds of memorabilia, and that they would give tours to people of your office. Is this true?
it is true. That's written down somewhere.
It's written down somewhere, my friend. I went I went deep. Yeah, it's written down that they would come through your office to do studio tours.
Yeah. When they did the studio tour, my office was a stopping point, and the guest or whoever was fascinated with the decor of, like you said, from floor to ceiling, posters and toys and books. And I just immersed myself to this day.
Yeah.
And honestly, it'd be embarrassing. My whole apartment is like a toy store. I have a sign that says "Man Cave."
Yeah, it's your museum.
It's my museum. It's my happy place, and that was the idea. I when I from start to finish, when I walked into my office and started working, I wanted to be happy, and looking at the things that I work with and do would just bring a smile to my face and let me know this is why I'm here, what I'm doing.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. I mean, your collection that you have right there as well, and you have to look at some of it and just go, wow, I mean, because that's great. We in this industry as the more we work on, the more little things we get. We get jackets and hats, and in your case, more characters and posters, and like you said, Pulp Fiction, and your posters are all over the place, and we're lucky to get that because it's things that we're proud of that we did, and that's part of what we do. Now you're working all the time. You're constantly thinking. I know that you also. Well, first of all, everyone, Ron is an immaculate dresser. I mean, when I see him walking around the hood, I mean, incredible outfits, really spectacular. I kind of wore this shirt a little bit for you today, Ron. Just I wanted to make sure that I had something really nice on.
I
But
like it. Thank you, Jeff.
in your free time, one of your other passions is music, and you've been a Hollywood Bowl ticket holder for years and years. I mean, I've seen you going to so many concerts at the Bowl. I'm like, Ron, where are you going? Where are you going? I'm off to the Bowl. I'm off to the Bowl. Um, what is it about you? And your license plate, it says Blues Man, I believe,
Yes.
and you're known as the Blues Man. Uh, Tell us about your fascination in music.
Well, music is my chicken soup that feeds my soul. I um, I love it. I don't play an instrument, but I just have a deep love and appreciation for live music and those who are able to create it. And I do all I can to support them. I'm a contributor to the LA Phil, and I'm on the board of the Master Chorale. That's a recent uh, genre I've gotten into, choral music. I attend the opera and a lot of theater that I don't know if you know about, but during the summer when you would see me going in and out,
In the nice outfits.
it's to the Hollywood Bowl to see, and it crosses all genres. I love seeing movies there. I highly recommend that experience of John Williams conducting the orchestras. They're playing Star Wars or Raiders of the Lost Ark. Last year, I believe they played the Barbie movie. They've done Game of Thrones, which was incredible. Of course, I love jazz and blues, and all of these things actually come to play when I am animating and directing um, a series or a movie. When I work with a composer, because the composers are quite surprised at my knowledge of music and my love of it, and so again, it's a collaboration in bringing out the best that they have. I'll give them an idea and a direction, and then they're inspired to come up with something great. I'm currently working with three composers right now on the projects that I'm creating, and each one is different.
Yeah.
What each composer is doing is different, and I'll add one more layer to it, Jeff. Music breaks down all barriers in terms of age, race, and the things that separate us. When people come together for music, all of that goes away. And I look around and I see my elders, I see young people, and those in the middle. Um, and, I particularly love that. I love being around people of all sorts. And music provides that common denominator that we can all love and unite and let, a lot of the diverse divisions go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, well said. And you're so busy doing so much work. We all need that free time to enjoy our passion outside of work. You have that. You have music. You also are really well balanced in your exercise routine. I know that's really important to you as well. Always going out and hiking and eating right and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, yeah. Well, um, that was part of my education when I started in animation. It's a sedentary job. You're sitting and drawing all day. And
Yeah,
um, I made a promise to myself as a young man that as I began to age and get to where I'm at now, I keep in shape. I keep my health up. I wouldn't let the hazards of the job. Many of the animators were drank too much or had heart issues because they didn't exercise or take care of themselves. And it's just been part of my routine from my 20s up until now. And I enjoy it. It's just, again, part of keeping that balance and
yeah,
work and
yeah, yeah. What kind of advice can you give to anyone who has been, well, maybe who's an artist or someone who has wanted to enter into the animation industry?
now. Um, that's kind of hard to answer. There was a time I could answer that question very easily. And the difficulty is with all the changes going on. Um, my friends and I have this conversation of where to start because we could go to a studio and apply one way or another, but meet a person, talk to them face to face.
Yeah,
Opportunity isn't allowed much now. It's all of these various apps or sites, LinkedIn or um, um, Instagram. That they want to know how many followers do you have and
hmm,
things of that nature. So um, I would say there are opportunities now to create your own film and get your talent exposed. I would advise someone to do that, being able to really showcase what they are good at, whether it's character design, animation, or all of the above, and network, get to know people. That was another bonus that I had because I am a people person and would get out to circulate and have a variety of interests. So it was sort of a no brainer for me to connect with people on different levels and different categories, and I would advise that as well.
yeah. And what about if there were any kind of, and I'm not sure if there are any kind of animation conferences or art conferences or anything like that? Maybe they can go to and meet people.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There are a number of those, and especially nowadays. Um, I well, again, the one I went to, Annecy, was one, but there are a number of animated animation film festivals. I in this case, I would point to checking online, but there are a number of conferences and places where people are getting together, as along with comic book conventions, which they're not just comic book conventions nowadays. Comic books, animation, and movies are all integral with each other since Marvel and DC started taking their characters and making these mega movies out of them. The conventions are one of the hubs where everything comes together and you can make connections across the board. So yeah, that's something to take
Yeah.
advantage of.
Or they can go to the Hollywood Bowl and look for Ron. you
Yeah,
know, what would you be doing, Ron? Have you ever had thoughts? What would you be doing if you weren't doing animation?
a musician.
A
I
musician.
played
Yeah.
the piano,
What would you be playing?
piano or guitar.
Yeah. But you never. But you say you're not. You've never done that before.
No, I've had two piano lessons that weren't failed, but it was a matter of time. And for me, it would have to tap into the passion that I have for animation and storytelling, to really become proficient as a musician. But that would be my next choice.
Yeah. Ron, how can anybody get in touch with you? Do you have a website or an email or anything like that?
Yes, my email is myrickron@gmail.com. I'm on Instagram as well as Facebook, and LinkedIn. And yeah,
Fantastic. And he's also at the Hollywood Bowl once again,
and
or in the neighborhood somewhere. Ron, is there anything else you'd like to say that maybe we didn't cover?
I think we've done a good job, Jeff. I appreciate again the conversation. It's good to get to know you as a great neighbor, and I feel really happy that I landed here from. I was in Granada Hills for 25 years, and due to changes in life or circumstantial changes, I stumbled here into Moore Park, and I've been quite happy, and I'm glad that
Yeah.
we were able to make this connection.
Well, we love having you nearby, and thank you so much. Thank you so much for doing my show, Rolling with Olan. This has really just been really exciting for me, and I thank you for bringing this knowledge to all of us, and thank you to all of my listeners and watchers and everyone who's checking out Rolling with Olan. Thank you again. We'll see you next time.